Podcast fam, we have a treat for you today. Dr. Dré Graham is the 2020 Florida Teacher of the Year and Executive Director of Independent Education and Parental Choice at the Florida Department of Education. He hopes that his work will continue to empower the next generation of world changers and positively impact the narrative of education everywhere. Get ready for an excellent show. You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. I am amped for this episode, y'all.
So excited.
Super excited. I cannot wait to introduce our guest. But before we do, we got some sponsors that we got to give so much love to.
That's right. We got to give a huge thank you to Leonardo's Pizza of Millhopper. Kyle and his team have been so supportive of our show. But even greater than that, they're so supportive of our community. Dude, I just love seeing his posts on social media. Kyle's always repping the Whoa GNV podcast. He's got some of Gainesville's great business and brands, hats and scarves and face masks and everything. He's always supporting. And you know what? In 2020 alone, they donated over $20,000 worth of pizza and sponsored $5,000 in fundraisers for homeless shelters, hospital staff, local nonprofits, school groups, everything. Kyle and his team are just absolutely incredible. So do us a favor and send these guys a huge thank you by ordering dinner tonight from Leonardo's Millhopper. Get some lasagna, some Chicago pizza. Definitely get some of those delicious garlic rolls.
They're so good.
Dude, they're so good. The best way you can do this, is by going to leonardosmillhopper.com. That's leonardosmillhopper.com, or by calling 352-376-2001. The best dinner you can get tonight.
Kyle, I love you, dude.
Love that, man.
Thank you.
I love seeing his posts. They're always so good.
And podcast fam, let's talk quickly about how COVID-19, COVID-20, and COVID-21 at this point
don't say that.
has impacted your business. Maybe you realize you need a different kind of office space, or you have questions about your lease options, or maybe you've been thinking about buying or selling a commercial property, but you're not sure when to act. Call the GNV Commercial Advisory Team at Colliers Gainesville. They have the expertise and local experience to help you make the right decision for your commercial real estate needs, y'all. Check out their services at colliers.com/Gainesville. Many thanks to my friend Dan Drodos and the GNV Commercial Advisors at Colliers Gainesville. You guys are absolutely epic. I love you. Thank you so much for supporting our show. And hey, listeners, if you need to get connected to any of our sponsors, just know that you can find all of the links, all of the information on our website at whoagnv.com/sponsors. I know sometimes we get in here, we start talking really fast, and you might miss the information because you're driving down the road listening to the greatest podcast of all time.
Right.
You're like, oh, I missed that sponsor. Well, guess what? whoagnv.com/sponsors. Go there. And it's all right there for you. Sarah's laughing at me. I don't even. Why are you over here? So let's go. And you guys, I'm juiced. I'm so excited.
Dude, we're excited for every episode all the time, but this one is a little special for different reasons.
Yeah, and we'll dive into it, tell you all those reasons. But today on the show, we have Dr. Dré Graham, the 2020 Florida Teacher of the Year and Executive Director of Independent Education and Parental Choice at the Florida Department of Education. I ran out of breath. Department of Education, Dr. Dré.
What's going on, everybody?
What's up, man? How are you? It's so good to see you.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. So excited.
So who wants to kind of share a little bit of our history and how we know each other?
Where do we start?
Why don't you tell everybody?
Okay, so I would say the common bond we have is the University of Florida, but specifically the University of Florida Marching Band School of Music.
Go Marching Band.
Yeah, that's right.
Does it irritate you guys that the marching band has just gotten significantly cooler?
Since we were there.
It's just really cool. Marching band is awesome.
This is
their social media is on point. Everything is
this is an entire podcast on its own. So I'll try not to go that far.
You're right.
I will say this: we had more fun. They have more opportunity. They went to London. I mean, they've had more opportunities and all that kind of stuff.
We're featured on collegemarchingband.com.
Yeah.
They're a whole session.
I don't know that maybe you can be both, but like I'm jealous of what they've gotten to do. But I think if they know the fun that we had, they'd be a little jealous too. So like, teach their own. What do you don't think so, huh? What would you rather? Would you rather be the ones with the opportunities to travel, or would you rather be the one that had the fun that we got to have?
I feel like we made the most of the opportunities we had. And each generation has different opportunities, and so it's up to them to make the most of those opportunities.
This is their band.
Exactly. Yeah. This isn't our band.
Right.
We're proud of the band they've become, but our band was
I think that's one of the biggest things about like, and maybe it's maturity, maybe it's whatever, but like when you're in it, and we talked a little bit before this started about like the awkward transitions between regimes and stuff like that. And that happens in business, that happens in football teams, sports, that happens in business culture. I mean, it happens across the board, right? But when you're in it, when you're in the middle of it, those transitions are so hard.
So tough.
And it's clinging on to that thing that you loved versus letting it go to the next wave of people. And when you're in that transition period, that's when it's the hardest, and we were both in a little bit of that transition, and the way we handled it might have been a little bit different, but I think what you said is completely right though. Like I look back on our time with pride, and I look forward to like the band that they are today and what they're doing, and with similar pride, because I just think it's just incredible what they have gotten to do and what they've become.
Exactly. And I think that's the point, is that once you want to leave an organization that you loved in better shape than what you found it.
Of course.
And when you see that the trajectory is still going up and up, like, and up. Yeah, then it's like, okay, you know what? There's really great things happening in the Fighting Gator Marching Band that like when I go back I can say, yeah, I was a part of that. Just in the same way that, we're all graduated from Florida, but Florida was elite when we were in school. But now it's at a whole
they were in a top 6 university,
level.
top 7,
correct,
whatever.
Right. But you better believe anytime someone brings up the ranking for the University of Florida, I have 2 degrees from there. Yeah. That's right, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so tough.
Have you done an alumni band?
I have. That's the one thing I have not done.
See, neither have I. I feel like it's kind of like.
To be fair, like I haven't been invited to alumni band yet. I think they're still waiting. It's like what is?
Are we not old enough?
Right. Like it's like when you go into the Hall of Fame, you have to have like a certain amount of years out of the and like.
True.
I don't think that clock has ticked away for me yet because I was in marching band for like 10 years.
Maybe we haven't donated enough to the band.
Maybe that's
why our name isn't on the list.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. But maybe we should just make the pact now and all do alumni band together.
Tell our audience what we played in marching band and that kind of thing.
Okay. I was Michael
What
D.
years?
Michael D's alto sax 2004 to 2007. Drumline FDL from 2007 to 2010.
You're like the longest band member of all time.
No, Bilbo Baggins is the longest drum member of all time. But,
Bilbo, we love you.
So I was trying to figure this out. So I got to UF in 2000. I think I stopped doing marching band like 2002, 2003. I think I was only in it for like 2 or 3 years. I can't remember exactly, but I was telling Dré about
it was the Zook year, so you didn't keep count.
Yeah, I was very much like
9 and 3. That's all you know.
I wanted, as a student, I wanted to get the the marching band experience, say, hey man, I've been on that field. I've looked up into those stands. I've had 90,000 people screaming at me. It was like the most greatest thing of all time. And then I also wanted to be like, so I did sleep in on a Saturday. Did not have to wake up at 8 a.m. for band practice. And I did get to do the tailgating and all that sort of, because I feel like that was the kind of the piece that you missed out on a lot of times. You didn't really get to do the party side of it. If you were, Mike's like, I did.
It's like going fast on the highway, just don't get caught.
Not as much, but man, there were some epic band trips and some good times. Our audience is listening, man, all these band nerds that are on this show.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Yes, and I played trumpet during that time. So what years were you there?
I was there from 03 to 06, and I actually marched mellophone, and I was mellophone section leader. And that's where I met Mike Lafredo.
Shout out to Michael.
Yes, Mike Lowe.
So I don't know if you know this, but Mike introduced me to Shannon.
To Shannon? Really?
And so Shannon's my wife, y'all. Like Michael Lafredo.
He's responsible.
He's responsible for our marriage, no doubt about it.
Dude, he's phenomenal human. Definitely one of my favorite humans.
He's definitely going to listen to this too. He's going to be like, this crazy guy. So shout out to Michael Lafredo.
And then I actually, just like Collin mentioned, I decided to take my senior year off to kind of do the student thing, which was a terrible decision. I remember sitting in my theory class of my junior year, And we were going through getting ready for the next year. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. We're getting a new band director. Like, I kind of want to just do my own thing. And my girlfriend at the time, who then later became my fiance, who later became my wife, she was like, no, I'm going to stay in March. I'm like, okay, well, you do your thing, and I'm going to be sitting in the student section. And Ryan Vaselli, who is a saxophone player we were in theory class together, and he looks at me and he says, we're going to the national championship next year. And I said, have you seen the same team that I've been watching for the last 3 years when I've been stuck in the band? Like, I'm just here to have fun. Like, nothing's going to happen. So as a student, I sat in the stadium and we celebrated while my wife was in Arizona.
That's right. I was
at the national championship.
I was a row behind her. Yeah. Casey and I watched all the games together. Like, we were game buddies. She was a piccolo player.
So I definitely regretted not continuing that year. And Mr. Watkins, when he came in and has done a phenomenal job with the band, was like, hey, we want your boyfriend to like come back. And like, he heard he was a section leader, like bring him back. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm just going to be a student. And then the next year I decided to come back as a graduate assistant, and I was the GA for the saxophone section from 07 to 09. So I still got a chance to go to a national championship. We enjoyed that whomping on Oklahoma and
that's right,
in Miami. So, but
which is funny because that was actually 2007 was the year that I transitioned to drumline. So the year that you came on as a grad athlete was the year that I had left.
Right. So I still got one, but she loves to tell the story that, well, I went to 2 national championships.
Yeah, that's right, she did.
So, well, I got to cut the net for the basketball national championship. So
there you go.
And I did
Man,
all
that was a great. That was a great season. That was a great era. That's a great time.
The golden era.
So 2006. So I did not get to go to Arizona, and I wasn't in band anywhere. Like, I was graduated by that point, right? So funny because 2008, or 2007, 2008 season, like, that was in Miami.
Yeah, that was 2008, yeah.
So it's funny. This is like completely off topic at this point, but Shannon and I went to that national championship, and we're down there with like my sister and everything, and Shannon's not having a drink tailgating. And this is like early on, and Shannon, like,
I'm already doing the math.
Yeah, the pregnancy. Like, my wife was pregnant at this point, and my sister was like, "Why aren't you having a drink? Are you pregnant?" Like, called out Shannon. That's when Shannon got called out on her pregnancy. Was at the national championship tailgate, and I'm sure she'll be glad that I told that story to the entire world. But
it's so crazy. We're like going back through memory lane, and I remember seeing, like, just as we mentioned different things, I remember seeing little pieces of these things on Facebook.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, it's just those memories that are coming back. Because I mean, obviously back then Facebook was just for college kids,
right? And I mean, you didn't have the ability to post photos there until I don't even remember what year,
but it wasn't always a thing. All over the place.
Right.
It's really showing the age.
Good times. Hey,
and that's when you got to see everybody's status, because Facebook was so new. It's a different time, y'all.
And that's when we still had MySpace pages too. Like, yours calling all the girls.
What's so funny about that? I swear. Hey, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the Facebook timeline like used to stop. Like, you used to like get to the end.
You got to the end.
Yeah, to the end of
like,
it.
okay.
Like, you literally wake up in the morning and
Sarah has no idea.
See
She's
everything. And be like, oh, this is where I left off last night before I went to bed.
This is where I can start.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now there's no way.
There's been a lot of changes. A lot of changes over there. This is great. I'm like, we could just ramble on about, like, go down memory lane, and I would be perfectly happy.
The one thing that didn't change is we're back in the Heisman and national championship consideration now.
Well, did you?
I mean, it did change. I did see it's popping up on my screen. Devonte Smith won the Heisman.
Congratulations, sir! You're a phenomenal athlete.
First wide receiver in history, and so I mean, like, this is actually going to release on the 18th. So he's listening to this,
he's a third wide receiver
to win it,
to win the Heisman. Yeah.
That's cool.
First since Desmond Howard.
Okay, but he was predominantly a defensive back.
But he's currently a wide receiver.
Okay, I don't know. So who was the first then?
I don't know.
I'm not going to argue with you.
I don't know. We're sports trivia.
I was pretty sure he was going to be the first, but we'll have to look this off. Look this up off record.
I'm just saying, ESPN is telling me
he's the third.
He's the third.
He's the third receiver. Alabama. He's the third wide receiver.
He's the third wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy, and the first since Desmond Howard in 1991.
Dang.
All right. Well, I'll stand corrected right now, but I'm going to say that.
I'm do my homework after this episode's
shenanigans on this one. But anyway, that just happened.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm really excited about this. So you guys,
there's actually a lot more to talk about.
Yeah,
than this, because Dré is a phenomenal human being. He's done so much, but like,
well, one, I was super proud of you, dude. Like, when I heard of everything happening last year and Florida Teacher of the Year, like, all that, I was like, man, like, one, I already knew you were a great human being, but I'm like, man, this guy's a great human being, y'all.
I appreciate that.
And I reached out and I was like, man, like if you're ever back in Gainesville, I know you like probably don't come through very often, but if you do, like let me know. And of course I was like lining up shows for 2021, and I reached out because it's still kind of a break time or the end of a break. It was like I'm coming through. Like let's do this because I know we could do interviews via Zoom and do a lot of the things that you see other podcasts do, and that's perfectly fine. But I love having people in our little studio here, and I don't know, it's just a different experience. It's fun, right? Like it's just fun. So
it adds a level of intimacy. Like I mean, it's just you can dig in and you can really like get into the nitty gritty. Whereas like you feel there's a barrier. With that, I mean, with the screen in front of you, it's like, okay, yeah, it's awesome that I'm talking to this person who might be hundreds of miles away from me, but like, where's the human connection?
Right.
So, I'm with you.
The energy is just different.
Way different.
Like, it's just different. Like, I don't know. I can't explain it, you guys. If you ever get an opportunity to come on our show, take it, because it's like, it's great. Like, there's just a different energy, a different vibe. And I've also told a lot of people, like, when I think about why I created this podcast, so just to kind of give everybody a little background on the show, one of the reasons I really focused on video first was because I was already doing a ton of video marketing. We were doing a ton of video marketing in the dealership, right? Showing a lot of content. And I've been on Facebook since 2004. So like,
same.
So, like I understood Facebook marketing. I was like, I want to create a great studio experience. I want to be able to show this experience off, and I want to be able to capture the Gainesville business owners, the leaders in this community. I want to grasp their attention. I want people to be like, wow, that looks amazing. Like that's cool that this is happening here. And when I think about our missions and some of the things that we're trying to accomplish, one of the things that we really want to accomplish is attracting experienced talent, attracting investors, attracting entrepreneurs, attracting the very best in the world to Gainesville, like having them literally come here, like to be on this show is like one of my dreams. So, what better way to be like, we want you on our show, but you got to be in our studio.
Right.
like, let's make this happen. And that's not to say that we won't ever, like we've done some Zoom stuff in the past, and that's not to say that we won't ever, but like my long-term vision is to have a really cool studio.
And the Zoom was good for what it was. There's no knocking on it, but like, I think that like, we talked about the intimacy, but also having the reliability of the technology that we have here in studio versus as good as technology can be when you're dealing with people in different internet connections and neighbors with leaf blowers and all the kids and cats and all the things that can happen during a Zoom, meeting or whatever. Like you just never know what can happen. And so having some control over the quality of production, I think is also, really good. But.
So much fun. So, man, I want to hear it all. Like, I mean,
walk us through. Like,
tell us this journey, incredible journey. Definitely last year, but I mean,
well, we haven't even got the origin story. I mean, other than the marching band, but
marching band since school. Like, what is the story? Like,
so I find that the best place to start is like kind of the tail end of high school, because I was bando commando when I was in high school. I loved band. I did the whole sports thing like the freshman year and whatnot. But I was like, no, music's my thing, and so I was committed. Drum major, librarian, section leader, in the reverse order of those. And my senior year, I decided I'm going to Florida. Like I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an anesthesiologist, and that's what I'm going to do. And so you go to the top school for medicine in the state. So I applied, got accepted. Everything was great. I was walking across the stage for our senior award notables with my band director, and she gave me the most likely to be a band director award. So that was we laughed about that, right? And then she's like, "Hey, don't go far. You got another award coming." And I received the John Philip Souza award. When she gave me that award, she's like, "This guy thinks he's going to be a doctor, but I'm here to tell you he's going to be a band director." And I looked at her, I was like, challenge accepted. Like, no, I'm going to Florida. If I was going to be, and at the time, she was a graduate from Florida State. So I was like, if I was just going to only do music, I'd go to Florida State. Like, I'm going to be a doctor of medicine, which is why I'm going to Florida. So I went to Florida. Now, mind you, I still auditioned for the School of Music because that was also what I wanted to do. So I double majored in microbiology and music ed. So came in, was doing my thing. Because I graduated from IB, I was already 2 years ahead, so I got my gen eds out of the way, and was just working. But then I found my junior year that I was doing like everything I was doing outside of school. So outside of marching band, outside of classes and all that stuff it revolved around teaching music. I was an assistant choral director at Gainesville High School whenever they had their transition from their longtime chorus director. I came in and worked with, I believe her name was Rochelle Savitz. I can't remember her name. That sounds right. But so I assisted her. Also was helping out Dave Olson over at Lincoln Middle School with his middle school band and orchestra. And then I was teaching elementary steel drum bands at Duval Elementary at the time too. So everything was revolving around teaching. I also was teaching at World Martial Arts Center, which is now out in the Newberry area, and was serving as their curriculum director and the head of their kids' curriculum area and their demo team instructor. And so I'm like, man, everything I'm doing revolves around teaching. But I'm staying the course. I'm gonna be a doctor. And then I had one of those pivot points, one of those aha moments when I was working with one of my private lessons students. We were working on this move for him because he was constantly getting like top 5 in his competitions. And at this time, we were both professional competitive martial artists. So we were traveling the world competing with our team Full Circle, which is based out of Jacksonville. And he was competing at high levels. And Ronnie was working on what he's doing. Shout out to Ronnie Smith. Shout out to Don Smith, his mother, who is still here. And I think Jamie Smith is also here. Also, Legacy Gators. They're phenomenal humans. But Ronnie was working on this move, and we were like, okay, man, we can put this in, but the chances of you winning with this move are slim to none because you can't do the move. And so if you can imagine, you want to paint a picture, imagine like you take your broomstick and you knock off the broom part, the sweepy part, and you have a bow staff. So Donatello, the purple Ninja Turtle, that was his weapon. And so in order for him to break that barrier of top 3, he had to do something that was outrageous because it's just the consistency piece was there for all of those high level athletes. And so what he was going to do was he was going to throw the bow up in the air, spin around twice, land on a knee, and catch the weapon. So, but in his division, the black belt division for this, and they called it extreme weapons at the time, if you drop your weapon, you're automatically disqualified. So he's working on it, and he's like catching it maybe 40% of the time. So, I mean, as educators, we know 40% is an F. So as the instructor, I'm not going to put an F's worth of quality out on the performance floor. Like, I don't want you to like be embarrassed and like not succeed because you're doing something that's like not going to succeed. And finally he came up to me, he's like, I really want to do it. And I was like, you know what? This is your thing, man. You've taken ownership. You've busted your butt. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And if it drops, it drops. If it doesn't, like, you know, that could potentially be really great. Well, we get up to Diamond Nationals in Minnesota, and he's getting to this part of the form, and his mother and I are like standing here with like our hands clenched, like white knuckled, holding our breath. He throws it up, spins around. Boom, he nails it. Everybody goes crazy. They've never seen anything like this before. She and I are crazy. We're hugging. She's crying. We're shouting and stuff. And so he still has like another 20 seconds left of his form to do. And like, nobody's paying attention. Like, did y'all just see what just happened? And you're like, dude, he's still got like more stuff to do. Like, what's happening? And so he finishes. He does his salutation and he walks out of the ring. So then he comes and he like beelines towards us. So of course I'm thinking, you know, he's gonna like love on his mom because, you know, she's the reason he's alive, and then like, and I'll be able to like dap him up and stuff afterwards. But he comes straight for me, wraps me in his arms, and he just looks up at me with like tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Sensei, thank you." And I was like, "Whoa! Like, what is he thanking me for?" Like, all I did was provide him with an opportunity to be encouraged, to feel supported, to really to accomplish what he wanted to do. And that's when it hit me. It's like, you know, without your influence and your consistency in that provision of fundamentals, he may not have accomplished what clearly has been a dream of his. And that was whenever I realized that like my purpose, my passion, my responsibility, ultimately when I look back hindsight as an older person, my ministry is to educate, is to teach. And so we flew back to Gainesville that weekend. Monday morning, went into Mutlu's office. And I was like, "Yo, Mutlu!" Shout out to Mutlu Chitum Kepik, who is still the undergraduate academic advisor for the University of Florida School of Music. I was like, "Hey, I'm dropping microbiology." And she looked at me. She's like, "What? What are you doing? Like, you're crazy." I'm like, "No, yeah, I'm all done. I'm just doing music ed." And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, that's what I need to be doing. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And the rest is kind of history in terms of the trajectory. And I'll talk specifics about it. And that's not to say, and I want to clarify, because of the musical influence of my high school band director, that is where the preferential desire for Florida State would have come from. I had a phenomenal experience in the University of Florida School of Music, and I wish other educators would get the experience that I had from being at Florida. The intimate care of the smaller schools, the world-class educators who were there. I believe Dr. Tim Brophy is still in the school, like not at the School of Music, but he's still working for the university. He's moved on as like the head of data everything. I mean, when you say Dr. Russell Robinson to anyone who's anyone about music education, you know his impact on the world. I mean, we had some phenomenal instructors. Dr. Charles Hoffer. I mean, it's you name it. Shout out to Dr. Helton in the saxophone studio. I gave him a hard time as an undergrad. I know he got tired of me sight reading my lessons, and so. But I give him huge props for putting up with me during that time and kicking my butt through that. But now also there's two more who I want to give a huge shout out to, who were really integral to my life as an undergrad. And that's not to say there are so many other professors who were there now and who were there when I was there, who are just so important. But specifically Dr. Paul Basler, Dr. Leslie Odom, they will always have my heart. They were there for me as a freshman and just bloomed into an incredible relationship. But so to make sure to leave that point.
Real quick.
Oh, geez, here we go.
So
you didn't know that Leslie Odom taught Dr. Dre?
We live in the same neighborhood.
Oh man.
and everything's cool, but when Shannon and I were dating, and she'd be like, "Get a room already!" Like, when are you guys gonna get married? Like, this time we're like it's I mean, it's funny looking back at the professors or that time, and the impact that they have, and I mean, I know it was joking, but it's kind of cool to see now Shannon and I are happily married, and we see Dr. Odom in our neighborhood. And it's quite funny.
Yeah, no, she's awesome.
It's great.
But so then I continued on, did my master's, stayed at Florida, got a chance to learn more. And then I was approached by my high school band director who said, "Hey, what are you doing next year?" And I was like, "I'm looking for a job." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to be opening a brand new school. I want you to come take over for me at King." And so I not only got to be a high school band director, which was always a dream of mine as well, but I got to be the high school band director at my alma mater. And so was there for 11 years. In the 11th year, I was selected as the King High School Teacher of the Year for the second time. Then I moved on to finalist for Hillsborough County for the second time. So it happened back in 2012 as well. But then in 2012, I was not selected to represent the county. It actually was another person who was at SPOTO who actually graduated from King High School as well 2 years prior to me. So I knew her as a student, then knew her as a professional, and she was selected to represent the county. And in which that was also the year, oddly enough, that the Tampa Bay Times released the winners on the morning of the event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was this this huge debacle. So I was walking around all day, and they're like, "Did you see the paper?" But I don't read the newspaper. It's like, "Did you see the paper?" I'm like, "No, what happened?" And they're like, "Oh, nothing." Literally everyone who I came in, "Oh, nothing." And why are you asking me? What's going on? No one would tell me. And so then ultimately I found out they're like, "Oh yeah, they posted the winners in the Tampa Bay Times
ahead of time."
And so I literally spent, but before we got to the event, I had 2 hours before I needed to report. And so I drove around from gas station to gas station to store, trying to find a newspaper. They were nowhere to be found. So I'm like, well, I guess I just have to wait. And so then nothing was spoiled for me. I found out that I was not selected at the event, which is what was supposed to happen. But I'm a huge believer in that everything happens for a reason. And honestly, I was not mature enough and I lacked the perspective that I was able to glean over the next 7 years of being an educator that allowed me to be effective in my position over last year. And so then in 2019, I was selected as the Hillsborough County Teacher of the Year, and then went on to serve this previous school year as the Florida Teacher of the Year. And I got to tell you, I've always had big dreams. And so my goal was to be the first Teacher of the Year to make it to all 67 counties. And there are 67 counties, but there are 74 districts in the state of Florida. And each county has their own representative, but then the 7 at-large districts, I'll call them, are the Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind, Florida Virtual, the Department of Corrections, and then the 4 laboratory schools at FAU, FAMU, FSU, and UF, PK Young. And so each of those schools, each of those districts submit a Teacher of the Year representative to go on to represent them in the state runoffs and that side of things. So my goal was to be the first one to go to all 74 areas. And March 4th, I returned home from my final visit, and I was doing like little selfies with all of them, and I would post and just celebrate them, because I feel like as the Teacher of the Year, your job's not for you to be celebrated. Your job is to celebrate others who are doing incredible things around the state.
Sure.
It's like you were selected, but it's not about you. And I guess that's just a me thing. But and not saying that, oh, Lord have mercy, I don't want things to be misinterpreted. That's not to say that other teachers, former Teachers of the Year, did not elevate their other teachers in the profession. I'm just saying that was the way I looked at it. But I got home on the 4th of March, took a picture with a poster that I had of me as the 74th Teacher of the Year, so celebrated Hillsborough County, and then the next Wednesday, March 13th, a state of emergency was declared and all travel stopped.
Isn't that crazy?
So I accomplished that goal literally a week prior to the shutdown, and it was maybe a week and a half after the 4th that I was approached about moving to the Department of Education to take over the choice office. And it's just been an incredible learning opportunity and an incredible experience of learning more ways to advocate for all students across the state. So it's been an awesome life. And I don't take for granted the compliment, the high praise that you provide of being a great human. But there's still more, and I feel like there's still more that I can do for others and for education and being an advocate for our students. And really that's what it's all about. I tell people all the time, it's like, my time is over. I've already gone through the quote unquote system. Now it's my time to try and help other young students really realize and become the best versions of themselves by advocating and changing a system so that it works to benefit all students, regardless of color, creed, religion, ethnicity. I mean, you name it. Education is a human right. As the most sentient beings on the planet, we should be afforded an opportunity to grow into the best version of ourselves. And it is our jobs as educators to make that happen and to facilitate that regardless of where you come from. But I'm sure I'll get back on that soapbox later.
We'll get an amen from me on that one.
Yeah. Love it, man. What are the character defining things that make the Florida Teacher of the Year? Like, what was it that led to you getting this great accomplishment? Do you have an idea?
This is the same question that I dreaded whenever they interviewed the 5 finalists.
Okay.
The question that I was always afraid of.
Did they ask it, or was Colin the first?
Oh, no, they did. No, they asked it. And I remember it like
just so you know,
yesterday.
I hate asking questions that everybody else asks. Like I'm always the guy who's trying to come up with a question, think of the stuff that nobody else actually asks. But I'm actually really fascinated to know,
Sure. Well, and I'll tell you how they framed or how the question was asked. It's essentially that's the why me question. Mm-hmm. And that was the one that I was always afraid of, because as an adult, I've been hyper aware of how I am perceived. Because as a high school kid, I was that cocky kid. I was that, I made All-State. I'm first chair this. I'm first chair All-County. I'm doing this. There's nobody better than me in music at my school. I'm doing this and and me. And it was always about me. And it was, and I don't say this to be a braggart, but it's one of those things where there are so many things that I have had the opportunities to do well. I mean, I was a state and national championship or state and national martial arts champion before I became an adult. Like it's just it was something I took hold of. I was an athlete. Like I was a great musician. So it just
was that a natural drive?
It was. Okay, it was just that natural
in your blood.
That push to excel and to succeed. Like no one was going to outwork me. No one was going to be better than me. If I saw somebody that was better than me in something that I wanted to be great at, I'm going to work until I'm better than them. So it came from a work ethic. But if you don't have someone telling you, hey, you've got to relax, and props to my mom and dad who constantly their phrase and their motto and their mantra for what they continuously poured into me was, you aren't better than anybody else, but nobody else is better than you. And so you can stand toe to toe with everybody, but you've got to make sure you keep your perspective in lock. As a teenage kid, I wasn't listening to that part of it. I was like, yeah, nobody's better than me. Like, what? No, I got this. And so then you get to college and everybody was drum major. And that was one of those Matt Sexton things.
It was. I remember. I know exactly what you're talking about.
We would sit in, chair drop.
Get on our level. No, just
kidding. He would sit us down.
Perfect timing.
He'd sit us down first day of band camp. And he would say, some people in here are going to meet people who they will marry and spend the rest of their life with. To which I was like, there's no way. There's no way I'm marrying somebody from Gator Band.
Check.
And then, right. And then the next year I look across from the mellophone section across the field to the back hash and I see the piccolos and there's this hot blonde girl in a gator blue shirt and some orange Sophie shorts. And I was like, I need to get to know her. And the next thing he would
say
thing
he said,
is he would say, all right, stand up if you were in your all-county band. And, like, basically everyone would stand up. So, okay, keep standing
Not
if
me, I
you
sat
were...
down.
He'd say, stand up if you were in all-county. Still a good number of people. Stand up if you were drum major. You can all see you're all on the same level. So there's no room for egos. Like, we're all here to do the same thing together. We're a family. Mm-hmm. So you sat down. And that was so powerful for me. And also... going into the saxophone studio and being that kid who I didn't have to necessarily practice, like it was always natural. And I was the principal chair all county my senior year, saxophonist for Hillsborough, which was a huge county. I'm like, okay, I got this. And then Michael Boniface came and he and I were accepted into the University of Florida together. Dr. Boniface, miss you, great guy. And he basically showed me that I wasn't crap on saxophone. And I was like, okay, all right, well, maybe I'm not the greatest at everything. But it was just that opportunity to gain that humility and to really understand the value and the importance of being humble has been something that I have tried to keep at the forefront of my mind. So when I'm asked the why me question, circling back to how we got on that tangent, I'm always hyper aware to not make it about myself. Because I really feel like as a teacher, it's our job to be the conduit for our students to achieve success. And so when people ask, what is it that makes you great? It's nothing that I've done, it's my students. I'm not evaluated by anything I do, I'm evaluated how my students perform. And so my job is to provide my students with an opportunity to gain some type of experience. So every 2 years we would take a trip that is somewhere where they've never been before. We went to Washington, D.C. by bus, I believe. Yes, we took that one by bus. That was a long bus ride. We went to New Orleans. We went to Tennessee. Flew to New York. That was the first time a number of students from what's called the Fishbowl in Tampa, Florida, got a chance to ride on a plane. Those experiences were important. Those kids worked hard to earn a spot to perform at Carnegie Hall. Not because of me. Like, yeah, I made the contacts and it was like, hey, we potentially can submit something, but that was all them. That was their push, their drive. They're the ones who are performing. I'm just waving my hands around. At any point in time, if they decided to stop looking at me and to just bomb, they could.
But why didn't they have those opportunities before?
Well, Sherry Sleeper, my band director, still gave them those opportunities. But just you think about areas, because King High School it's a Title I area school. And so you look at that demographic and you look at people who already count those kids out. You look at an area that doesn't have the same resources that other places do, and it takes a certain level of hustle and commitment and dedication and push to be able to afford those students those opportunities. And it's difficult when you're in it to get other people who aren't in it on the outside to really understand and then believe in the importance of it. Another question I was asked was, what do I feel is the greatest issue with education? And a lot of people are like, oh, money and resources. But I don't think that's it. It's the fact that we as a society don't value education. People who are engulfed in education value education. People who are outside of it couldn't care less about it. They don't understand the impact that teachers make on a daily basis to the direction of every single child's life. If a teacher, we can all, especially those of us in band, you can remember that band director who was like super influential to you. Absolutely. But you can also remember that band director who maybe had some perspectives and a focus that wasn't necessarily student driven. It's like, oh, we're going to get the superior, like you're going to work and you're going to, and they make your life miserable, and you have this phenomenal performance, and then you leave and you're like, I'm never touching my instrument again.
Right.
Every teacher has that power. And so whenever I meet someone who is an advocate against education, my first thought is, who hurt you? What teacher made you hate education? And if every teacher was able to provide that passion, that enjoyment of education, it would change the landscape of our entire country, of the world. Because you put your finances, you put your resources towards things you value. And so if there was ever an indication of whether or not we value education, it's look at our nation across the board, that the resources necessary for every child to receive an equitable education that is tailored directly to what they need is not always there. And it's just, and that is what it is. And it's not just the students and their needs, but it's also, you've got to facilitate the people who are supposed to be instructing. And you know, that's why, and I'm thankful for the initial steps that have been taken by our state to start to elevate that expectation of where our teachers are. And I'm a firm believer that this is a first step by increasing the minimum teacher salary for our new teachers. And logically, at least for me, being someone who's thinking ahead and looking at next steps, the next are for our veteran teachers. So it's like you can only do so much in a limited amount of time. But when you have that first step that's being taken, then the anticipation, okay, well, what next? Like, what are we coming? And so if we look at it from that positive lens, then that allows us to be anxious and to know that, okay, maybe, you know what, there is greater still coming for education. But and going back to that why me question, I remember sitting at a table in the DOE, people around, and they were like, why you? And so I could have talked about all the lessons that I do and incorporating every other content domain into my lesson, but they already saw a video of all that. They've seen my resume. They've seen all these other elements. And you know, and I started down that track. And it's like, but you know what? It's not about me. And I stopped in that, and I'll never forget, because Dr. Paul Burns was sitting on my right. He's the closest person to me, and he's the one who asked me this question. And I said, it's important for the demographic that is the lowest performing in our state, the male of African descent, who is statistically the lowest performing in our state. It's important for them to see someone who looks like them be in a position that's considered a position of success. And it's so important for us to understand that representation matters. Representation matters. I was in a conversation with a friend's student whenever, like, it was probably about 2 years ago, and he asked me, he's like, you know, I just don't understand. I don't get, why do you need BET? And why do you need all these other things that are like specific for black people? Which, and I've had my own kind of cultural awareness to that term black, but that's another conversation, which we can get into later. But like, I don't understand. I said, let me offer some perspective, because I'm all about mindset shifting. And that's why I don't know that I've ever had a conversation as an adult. I don't know that I've ever had a difficult conversation that was too much for me to handle, and that I didn't want to engage in and get deeper, because I want to know why you think the way you think. Sure. Because I'm a firm believer too in that we are all victims of our experience. And I was criticized once for using the term victim, but you don't choose what family you're born into.
My ears perked when you said that. Yeah. You
don't choose the environment that you grow up in. You choose how you can react to it, but that's also a result of how you are raised and how you're cultivated and how you're nurtured and in the nature that you grow up in. But we are all victims, and we are results of our experiences. Being a victim is not necessarily a bad thing. We look at it in our society as a negative connotation, sure. But a victim just means that you have no control over what's happening to you. So if we're looking at the strip all the emotion out of it, logically, we are all victims of our experiences. But I acknowledge that And I don't judge based off of how your initial reaction and how you choose to view me. I mean, and I was saying this to, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I was saying this to a group of young African-American males that we were talking to. I said, yeah, I have 4 degrees. I'm a fairly educated person. I would argue that I've been a fairly successful person by any standards. But when I walk down the sidewalk and I'm wearing my do-rag and my tank top and my shorts because I'm headed to work out, people don't see a person who has 2 master's degrees and a PhD who's working on his next ed doctorate and applying for a DMA. They don't see that person who values education. They don't see the person who was a success where he was in his hometown and has now relocated his family to continue to. They don't see that. And once again, I'm not saying all those accolades to beef myself up. They see a person who looks differently from them, who by their experience may or may not be threatening. And so we have to understand that that mentality and those experience comes from some type of event or how they were raised and all those things. And then we have to make a conscious decision on how we respond to that. And so you can choose to either meet that with more force, or you can choose to provide grace in order to afford them the opportunity to demonstrate that they have a desire to learn. Now, obviously, there are people you can't change their mindset. And I've gotten in a lot of discussions with people like that, too. And eventually, I'm like, you know what? I can't help your ignorance. You choose not to look at the facts and not to look outside of what your bubble is. That's cool. That's on you. You know what? God bless you. You do your thing, man. I'm good. Your life doesn't affect and doesn't impact my life. Mm. But if you're willing to have this conversation, then let's do it. And I feel like that has been much more powerful in my life of changing the mindsets of individuals who treated me differently just based off of the way that I looked. And I could get into some personal things, but I don't want to dishonor the relationships that I've been able to build in some specific situations, but those who know understand that I'm referring to them right now. But I'm thankful that we've been able to move forward and grow our relationships regardless of how they felt about me before. And so I think that's just representation matters, and that's something that we've got to keep at the forefront now more than ever, in my opinion, especially when we look at the landscape of our society. And really, I mean, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, we as a country don't just treat people like humans. Everyone with a heartbeat, with a sentient mind, deserves the opportunity to live a life of freedom. It's written in our Constitution. But everyone doesn't get that opportunity. And it's just, I don't get it. It's been really difficult for me. And maybe it's because of the experience that I was a victim of. and you know, it's my parents were always pushing for what they felt was greater, and what they wanted to give us those better opportunities than what they had, and they wanted us to have more, and we want to pour into you differently. Like and they had that expectation, and I'm so thankful for the life that they provided and they afforded me, because I understand what sacrifice is, and I understand that with everything that I have accomplished, I still want more for my daughter. And I want her to have those kids. I want her to do more. I want to push her. I want to provide her with those resources and things that she needs. And also, not everybody can do that. And so it's just having that grounded, realistic view that is so significant in understanding how we as people should interact in order to elevate the community. And it's just, but we live in a selfish society, and but it's not about us. Because, like, you know what? In like 100 years, hopefully in 100 years, I'll be gone. And, you know, and I tell my kids this all the time. King High School was here before you got here. King High School will be here after you leave. It's about what are you doing in your 4 years that you're here.
How old are your kids?
I have one 7-year-old daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's phenomenal. She's my heartbeat.
So, I mean, it really sounds like you had a very positive, influential family on your life.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a critical component.
Huge.
Right? And
Huge.
so like when I look at somebody like yourself that is in a role as a teacher, like teachers, coaches, like you said, you have that band director that you remember that had that impact on you, right? Like they do have critical and important roles. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the times there's this pressure on teachers to almost fill a parental role, right? Like, isn't that just the reality? Like, because
when I say too that came into light a lot as we navigated COVID, where people were trying to figure out like, oh, what do I do with my kids now? Because
be flexible.
Yeah, because the teachers were the parents. Right. For a long portion of the day, right? And I say this as somebody that didn't have kids, but this is as we did the coronavirus sessions and stuff like that. These are things that I remember where it's just like that going through this pandemic and seeing that relationship between educator and parent and how that was it a drop off? These flexibility changes that had to happen. I don't know. It was a huge part of the whole thing.
Well, I mean, you think about the memes and things that jokingly you see at the end of like the winter break. It's like, all right, you can have your kids now, or the teachers who post the memes, like, and now the parents understand what we deal with every day, right? But it's that extended and exacerbated, and I think there was never a greater opportunity, and that's what I try and explain to, or I say explain, but I try and to promote that what we've experienced this year is an opportunity to reevaluate and to redesign what education looks like. And at the end of the day, we hear the adage that it takes a village to raise a child, but we don't really believe it.
Or we don't act it anyway.
Yeah, we don't. We can say it. Those are great words to say. But if we're not engaging all facets of our community to provide for our students, then it's a moot point, and it means nothing. They're literally just lifeless words. But you look at this demographic of people, this profession of education, and you're saying to them, save us. Save us. Because if you don't keep doing your job, looking down the road, we've got this generation of student who was not afforded the same quality education. But then it's so important that, you say, we'll save you. Remember us whenever we're on the other side of this. And that's one thing that I'm thankful that we have a commissioner who understands the value of educators and understands that teachers they're the cornerstone. And I know there lots of people have different vantage points, different views of different people, and you can look at all those things, and that's great. But no one can argue that teachers are the ones who are facilitating the change. They're the ones who are facilitating those life-changing experiences that we talked about earlier. If I hadn't had the chance to provide those experiences, those opportunities for my students, I mean, they still would have made it through and they would have gotten by. But did I add value to their life? And I would like to think that I did. And I think that's such an important role. I just literally the other day I was talking with a teacher who came to me and she said, I need your advice. I said, yeah, sure. What's up? She said, I got into school today. Welcome back from winter break. And I get a letter from a student. And this letter is talking about how over the last 2 weeks, this student was threatened because of their identity by the people who are literally charged to protect them by their parents and say, hey, well, no, you're not this. And if you say you are, then we're going to strike you. And you look at things, you look at situations like that, and you have to understand we've got to look globally. This is not an isolated event. And you look at the statistics, and had a chance to listen to First Lady Casey DeSantis talk about this the other day. And she said it so eloquently. In the time since we've been on remote learning, instances and reports have dropped. That's because the people reporting the incidents of abuse and whatnot are the teachers.
Right.
And so, and this is not to take away from the concern that many educators have for being in an environment that potentially puts them at risk. I think that's such a valid opinion. That's such a valid viewpoint. perspective. I did not mean opinion. I apologize if that offends anybody, but that's it's an important perspective. But I also think it's important that we are providing the same equity to our students as we are our teachers. And so for those that are comfortable being in, how are we facilitating an opportunity for them to continue to be the effective teachers that they've demonstrated that they could be? And this is a time for collaboration, not division. And when we see people choosing to take this as a divisional time, that's whenever you run into those difficulties. So it's exactly what you've talked about. Yeah, students and families that are at risk, that are suffering or potentially could suffer from exposure to the virus, they need to be at home. They need to be kept safe, but they also need to be provided the opportunities to continue their education. But then also on the flip side of that those same teachers who are still people, and I think that's what we fail to understand, is that teachers are the parents with children, but because of their chosen profession, they lose that equity piece, and I think that's where the challenges have presented themselves. And so kudos to those areas, with Florida being a local operated state, who were able to afford their teachers with the opportunities for equity and continue to push for that. And I think that's such an important piece of everything.
You were probably, I think you might have been getting ready to make another point when you were talking about the relationship between teachers and students before I brought it up with COVID. I don't know if I derailed you, but.
I just think that there's a huge responsibility put on teachers to almost be the parents of the students, right? And ultimately, when I think, kind of diving back into the victim word and a lot of the I look at a lot of this as foundational issues.
Sure.
And I think the foundation is not necessarily in the classroom; it's at home first.
I don't disagree with that.
Right. I see a lot of the things, a lot of it has to do with parenting or not having parents or having a divided family, and I think a lot of this kind of creates the mindset. You're talking about mindset. That's a lot of that creates the poor me and the victim mentality. Mm-hmm. Because I just look at the world and I look at friends exactly like you who are doing incredible things, and I know that you don't have the mindset of poor me or my or whatever. It's you don't have a victim mentality of. And kind of going into race, because you're an African American man, I don't see you having this mindset of, because I'm African American, I'm at a disadvantage. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but I don't see that through your speech, through the way you approach life. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. But it's time for transparency, Yeah. And that's one thing I love about just decisions I made. I'm unapologetically myself, and so we can definitely go there. You don't see it because I don't allow you to see it. I don't use my ethnicity as, and you'll hear me anytime I talk about the different colors of our skin. I don't believe that we are different races. We're the human race.
Right.
But there are different ethnicities that do accompany different biological differences. And we don't talk about bone density and all other kind of nonsense. Sure, those are ethnic differences, but we're all one race.
Population drift is my favorite.
Yes. But when we talk about those things and those barriers, I've had barriers because of my skin. However, I haven't allowed that to change my drive.
Right.
But then I also understand that as a male of African descent, it is important for me to be an overachiever and to demonstrate that when you put my resume up against somebody else's resume, that my resume is so much deeper. It has so much more depth, so much more... it's so much richer that there's no way you can deny me without it being blatantly obvious that you're just choosing this person because you feel like there's some aspect of me that will not provide the same opportunity. And when you are aware of things like that, you don't allow it to be a crutch, but you use it to be an inspiration. I've always been the type of person who, when I think about ways that I can change the system, I believe that there are two different paths I could take. I could either create my own and say, this is all me and this is how we're going to do things, or I can rise up in the currently established system and try and affect change from within. For me, I think it is more effective for my path. There are many people who have started their own thing and they have had such an incredible impact. For me, I want to rise up in what's currently established and then change from within. Because generally that's been established longer. That is going to have a wider reach. And it's going to be something that already has kind of the spotlight on what's happening there. I believe that's how you elicit much larger global scale change, is by approaching things from that perspective. But that comes from an awareness, not a lack of awareness of who I am and how I'm perceived. It goes back to that humility argument that we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. If I wasn't just acutely aware of the dichotomy of my presence, and it's just, we'll go back to, I'll give you a quick anecdote from whenever I met. So my cohort for Teacher of the Year, there were three males of African descent. At some point in time, all three of us had long hair. I still currently have my long hair. My buddy from Hernando County currently has his long hair. My buddy from St. Johns County had cut his hair off. He had long hair. He now has long hair again. One of the first comments that the first conversations we had done our introductions and kind of, so everyone's still kind of awkward, didn't really know everybody yet. And we were walking back to the elevators to go to our rooms. And Jay Early, shout out to Jay, Hernando County, comes up to me and says, bro, I just got to tell you, man, I love the fact when I saw your picture, here is a Teacher of the Year finalist, and he's a male of African descent with long hair. Like, and I see your dreads, and I'm like, well, they're twists, but yeah, okay. He's like, and I see your dreads, and like you're out there, and you're proud, and you got it, and that doesn't detract from who you are. But yet, when someone sees that,
they're perceiving it.
How is their perception?
Right.
And I'll tell you, growing up, my dad kept my hair short. He's like, you need to look respectable. You need to look respectable. Cut your hair. You need to look respectable. No, you can't have earrings. You need to cut your hair. Look respectable. I got to college. One of the first things I did was grow my hair out. I had my long twist and everything and loved it. Met Casey with my twist. She loved it. We were going to meet her dad, and she actually started doing karate with us. So I was teaching her karate with our karate friends. So I knew I was meeting her dad this weekend. So I showed up to the karate school, and she looks at me and she says, "What did you do?" I shaved my hair off. Because I've got to look respectable whenever I meet your father. And for those that don't know my story, my wife is of another ethnicity. She is Caucasian. I am of African descent. But I was hyper aware of that stigma that exists for black males with long hair. But it was a part of me it is a part of what I want. That's the way that I express myself. I love being able, the reason I don't let my hair lock up is because I want to be able to do different things with it. If I want to have cornrows, awesome, I have cornrows. If I want to do twists, wear it long, I'm going to do twists and wear it long. If I want my mom or my sister to braid a mohawk, which that's like one of my favorite go-tos, then I can do that. But that's a way that I express myself. And so when I met her father, like I said, I shaved it off and I kept it short for a while. Like I got to make sure, and that was always in the back of my mind, I got to be respected. I got to make sure I look professional and look respectable. And so when I applied for my first job, my hair was still short. Started as a teacher, my hair is still short. But I told myself, I said, you know what? When you get your PhD, you're going to grow your hair back out. Because nobody can tell you anything when you get your terminal degree. You can still have your opinion, but one thing that no one can ever take from anybody is your education, because you earned it.
Mm-hmm. How is that different than, the people who walk into a job interview and they got tattoos all over their arms and they're being perceived as, they could be perceived as a thug, or whatever. It is. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
They get like I just there's a lot of perceptions. You know, a good example. I'll take myself as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, like this is how I go to work.
Sure.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to be an entrepreneur, was so I could wear blue jeans, a shirt, and a ball cap.
Because you're your own boss.
Exactly. But I also knew that when I was going to job interviews and when I was, I mean, heck, even when I went to go get my first college job, like I didn't go in there dressed like this, right? Like I went in there
dressed to the nines,
dressed nice, and to be, like you said, respectable. Like, I mean, isn't that just natural?
I know. I think those two examples are a little different.
Okay.
I think there's something to be said with dressing professionally, which when you are, and I believe that when I was in the classroom, and especially at the beginning of the year, from January, or from not January, Lord have mercy, from August to December, I wore a shirt and tie.
Yeah.
Every day. January to March, not every day, but still for the majority of the time. March to May, I was a little bit more casual. But then when August came back, shirt and tie. Because that perception and how you perceive, I take my job seriously, I take myself seriously, you should take me seriously because I'm dressed more formally. So I'm a firm believer that if I'm making a first impression, then yeah, I'm going to come dressed to nines, because I want your first impression not to be, oh, he's a person of African descent. I want it to be, dang, he's looking good. Like, that's a really nice suit. Like, he looks put together, because those first impressions are so important. Mm-hmm. Then once you meet me, we can start to kind of shape that opinion. When I'm looking at that visage, that appearance, if I am someone who's totally tattooed up and that's what my personality is, I can hide that if I want. As a person of African descent, if I have my hair long, I can't hide my hair. And for all you know, that could be something that's very culturally specific. Because if we're talking about people of different ethnicities, especially people of African descent, people who are born and raised in Jamaica are very different from people who are specifically from a country within Africa, which are very different from people who are raised and born in America as people of African descent. And they all have different traditions, different values. And in some of those countries and things, having long hair is a spiritual thing. So who am I to judge the way someone has their hair to say that something is or is not professional, yet they show up in a suit just as with anybody else because they're looking at it from a formal perspective. We have formal dress, we have casual dress, we have formal casual, we have all the other little sections in between on that spectrum. And when you're going for a job, it's something it is professional. It is a formal occasion. But the way I wear my hair is not a formal piece. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that those are similar, simply because if I choose to get tattoos, which I have tattoos, but they're all in places that are concealed. So, or concealable. Right. Concealable. I can cover my tattoos and no one will know that I have any. But those tattoos were a choice. And people could argue that my hair is a choice too. But my hair is a part of me. Mm-hmm. If I get a tattoo on the side of my face, I chose to get that tattoo on the side of my face knowing that people are going to have an opinion about me having a tattoo on the side of my face because it's not natural. Yeah. I think there's a difference.
But when you got that tattoo, maybe you were thinking about that and maybe you matured, maybe you got past that. Like, I don't know. Like, you can... I agree with you, but I guess for my point is, like, you can constantly make the decision to change the status of your hair, right? But like, sure, you could have gotten a tattoo when you were at a certain age.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that maybe you don't have identity to that tattoo anymore, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it removed.
Sure.
Like at the end of the day, I'm still kind of from a perspective of, and this is an idealism and I know that it is, but who's the best person to do a job? Like,
I don't disagree with you at all.
There's even show it was, I think, early COVID, and maybe it was even 2019, but like there was that show on Netflix, Blind Date, where it was this. I mean, it was a social phenomenon for a while, but the whole idea was like you meet these people in chambers. You don't know what they look like. You don't know the color of their skin. You don't know anything, but you try to form a bond based on just talking through personality. A wall, right?
Absolutely.
And I sit here and listen to this, and again, I know I'm speaking idealisms, but like, why? My general question is, why does it matter? Why does it matter if you're tatted up? Why does it matter if you wear all black? Why does it matter if you are black and have long? Like, it shouldn't matter. Who's the best person to do the job?
But I think you're arguing two different things, if I may.
Yeah,
because
please.
I think when we talk about the job piece of that, as the person who is the boss or the authority there's a very specific, I'll say, perspective is not the word. There's a visual that you are looking for depending on what the job is. If I'm hiring somebody who I know is going to have to go out and market to a very specific demographic, then there's something specific I'm looking for.
That's why I say that, like, I know I'm speaking from a point of idealism, because
right.
I understand, like, in this world that I'm creating is undo these perceptions, undo these problems where that has to be a thing.
Mike, I want to live in that world.
Yeah, no, I do too. But ultimately, you want the CEO that hires a salesperson that's the best at selling the product. It doesn't matter what they look at. It doesn't matter who the person that they're selling to thinks about it, because I'm saying these perceptions should be undone.
Right, but the problem is, like,
they exist.
As much as we say, oh, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
We do.
I pick up the cover and I go, I'm not so interested in this book.
right.
Like we do that.
Yes.
Like, without knowing the content, what's inside, who it is, like whatever, Like,
and so my question to you, Dré, because I wrote this down, I scribbled it a long time ago.
I'm not saying like it's not right. Like, we shouldn't do that, but we do.
It's
just human
for
instinct.
you as an educator, where do you prioritize the idea of say, and I'm just gonna speculate, I'm not gonna try to sugar it, but like, say going in front of a group of underprivileged people and being an influence, right? So showing them what they can be, right? Mm-hmm. Versus stepping into a different crowd and undoing the victim of their experience
sure.
that may have come. I think another way that we talk about this is, I think we all laugh and joke about the people that never left our hometowns, right?
We do, yes.
Right? But they're victims of their experiences in ways, whether it's through opportunity or through whatever. Like, mm-hmm. I was afforded the ability to leave my hometown and go to college. Mm-hmm. Going to Gainesville, experiencing diversity for the first time in my life was a pinnacle.
Yes.
I mean, it was huge. And so I can sit here and laugh and joke and knock and whatever about people that never left my hometown because they are the way they are, but they're a victim of their experiences, right?
Correct.
So my point is, like, does it serve you better? And at what point do you prioritize stepping in front of the people that you can be a role model toward because they want to see somebody like you, versus undoing those experiences?
I can give you the answer to that. And I feel like I've lived it for the last year and a half at least. And I'll go back to my classroom to start off with this answer and this response, is that my classroom was the depiction of diversity. Being at a school that was in a Title I area, that was also an international baccalaureate school, that was located roughly 15 minutes from a Tier 1 research institution, I had students who were of Asian descent and the numerous Asian descents that you can think of. I had students who were of Indian descent and learned a lot about Indian culture, and the fact that just because someone is quote unquote Indian doesn't mean you know what religion they're from, because that's what identifies them. Mm-hmm. I had students of Caucasian descent. I have students of African descent. You name it. I had Hispanic students. You name it. They were in my classroom. And we created a culture of collaboration. You're not judging anybody based off of what they look like. And at some point in time, you're going to have to work with that person. And if one succeeds, we all succeed. And the way you break those barriers down, though, and especially as an educator, you focus on the relationship. It's about the process, not the product. And so when I walk into a room or when I meet certain people, my first goal is to develop a relationship with that person. How do you do that? You take the emphasis off yourself, and that's one of those things, those skills you develop. But whenever I meet somebody for the first time, my first instinct isn't to tell them about myself. I want to know about them. What makes them special? What makes them important? What do they value? And then now, you know what? That's just like this opportunity in my life. So now we have this common ground, this common thread that maybe you didn't think we had anything in common, but I see value in that.
Were you always that way, or did you have to teach yourself like that?
I got along with everybody. Like, yeah, and if anything, I felt more outcast from
I think you can get along with everybody, though, but I think everybody, I don't want to be too general, but like there's a lot of people that wait to talk. Like, you get excited because you want to share your story.
Sure.
And people, even if they're interested, don't do enough listening.
Nobody does. But they listen to respond. They don't listen to to understand. Mm-hmm. But that's a skill that can be taught. And that's one of those things where, as an educator, when I had my leadership camps and when I had those opportunities to talk to my students, that was one of those things that I emphasized because I understand the importance of it. And I honestly can't tell you whether or not it was something that, like, just something that I was built with, or that was the nature versus nurture argument. All I can say is that it's something that I learned along the way, and I do my best to provide that same feedback to everyone, and just to be that example. Say, hey, you know what? I remember that thing that Dr. Graham told me. Is like, we got to listen to understand, and stop listening to respond. Because I think if more people were willing to hear others' stories, and to know what makes them themselves, and what creates that schema that they have, and what has developed their ego and their id, and the super ego, when we start talking about the psychology pieces of it, then that would allow us to develop that big buzzword, empathy, that we don't seem to have enough of within our society. And so it's just I don't know if I was built that way, but what I do know is that it is probably one of the greatest character traits that I've developed that I try and use to push forward. And I think everybody in this room understands, and we value the importance of diversity, and the fact that we were all raised in here, which, Sarah, I assume you were raised in this mentality too, but I know there's a little bit of generational gap here. So to think that America is the great melting pot. Oh, you come to America and we're throwing everybody together and we all become Americans. That's really a great concept, but it's not true. Right. Well, America is not a melting pot. America is a really good salad. And I don't eat salad, but from what I understand, the more diverse things you have in the salad, the better it is. So you've got your lettuce, and you've got your croutons, and your cucumbers, and your cheese, but if any of those things became like any of the others, they would be a bland piece of food. But it's their uniquenesses that bring and that offer an opportunity to have a really great meal. That's what America really is, or what it should be. Right. And to where if I'm really into lettuce, but I've got some cheese, I'm not going to allow the cheese to take away from what I enjoy in the lettuce. I'll say, maybe let's embrace what the cheese is adding here. It doesn't. Oh, you know what? I can't make the lettuce isn't going to be the main feature, so I'm just going to take all the cheese out. They all operate and they function in such a way that they add to the uniqueness and the character of that dish. That is what, at least my opinion of what America was intended to be, whether or not those were the practices when our forefathers built the nation. And that's a whole nother conversation.
It's a whole nother
podcast. This is our band now. Right. This is our band. It doesn't matter what their band was.
You're right.
It's our band now.
You're right. But whenever those are the governing documents,
right. No,
I
how many? I say that in jest.
How many members of Congress were in schools after desegregation? Mm-hmm. But they're the ones writing the laws for how many billions of people are in our country, or millions?
I'll say this: this is the first time we've been in a room together, and
oh man, it's been a long time,
right? And the power of social media is, though, that I get to watch. You get to watch people from afar,
right?
And everything from, you were teaching in Ocala for a while before you were teaching in Tampa, and then your decision, after you won Teacher of the Year, I even feel I remember feeling like it was somewhat not controversial, but it was a huge decision for you to decide to leave private education and going to, or educating to go into the department. I don't know, you talked about being that cocky high school kid, and everything about you has been completely gracious and humble, and you've got so much gratitude in you, and just from person to person, you've been an inspiration, and it's one of those powerful things. You don't know who's watching, but I've been watching you for a long time, and I've been cheering you on. I've been so proud of you, the brotherhood that we have just from being in Gator Band. But it's just been incredible to watch what you've done I mean, really ever since I've known you, but especially in the last few years, dude, it's just been incredible. And you are a role model, even to me up here, like you're a role model. And you're not going to give yourself credit. So I'm going to give you credit and tell you thank you, because you don't know the lives that you're touching. I mean, hopefully you get enough credit and you feel that, but like, you have no idea the impact that you're having just from people like me that get to watch you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, big time. And it's one of those things where I'll even like use this to wrap up the podcast and just say, like, if you've had somebody in your life that has had an impact on you, reach out to them and thank them.
Yes.
Because you just, as a leader, like, you don't get it enough. Like, Mike's absolutely right. Like, the number of people that you're impacting, you're not going to even know the ripple effects of that, because they're not going to reach out to you and tell you. Right?
And some of them may. Like, I'm sure you've gotten hit up by a lot of people.
I get the messages from people who listen to this show and say, dude, just so you know, like, I went out and changed my life because of this episode.
That's awesome.
You know, like, stuff like that. Like, you get that, and that helps fuel the mission and be like, man, this is purpose for me.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to keep doing this. This is purpose. And so when you do get those tastes, but I think it's super important to realize that you're not getting enough of those thank yous, and you're not seeing enough of that impact or hearing enough about it. And so, like, I would like totally encourage our audience, like, reach out to somebody and say thank you. But yes, absolutely, just to kind of piggyback on what Mike said, you're having such an incredible impact on this world.
And I know you're not doing it for those reasons, but you need to hear it, that it matters.
I appreciate that.
I am honored that you're here.
Dude, this was awesome.
This was fun.
Thank you for the invitation.
It was a great, it's great diving into these very important topics too. And like, I'm very proud that we have leaders exactly like you. And I'm excited. Like, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun 10 years from now to do a podcast.
Yes.
Like, dude, remember 10 years ago when we did that show? Like, look at everything that's happened. Like, this is crazy. We were in like the middle of COVID and all this sort of stuff. And like, parents were the teachers, and now look at the world. And I mean, like, I don't know. I just look forward to those moments and having a follow-up podcast. And
That's right.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool.
It's going to be
really cool. So just keep doing what you're doing. And I will say thank you on behalf of our entire audience, because I just admire you so much, man. So,
I appreciate that.
So keep doing it. Keep doing it. And so where can people, like, where could our audience kind of follow your journey? Where can they, like, I don't know if you're on LinkedIn or like whatever you do, if you have a social media pages or anything.
When do you have to retire that Twitter handle?
Yeah.
I don't have to retire. I get to keep it. It's all mine. And that's okay. So this, really quickly, I know we're closing out, but this was something that the National Teacher of the Year event, like, we went up and all the state teachers of the year got together and we did a pinning ceremony. And I will never forget that. And I try, anytime I get a chance to visit with other teachers of the year and get to kind of talk to their districts and things, I always make sure to say this. And something that she said, Sarah Brown Westling, who was a former National Teacher of the Year, but she kind of helps to regulate the program now. She said, when you say, because we had to pass it around and say, I'm the Florida teacher, 2020 Florida Teacher of the Year. When you say that, you have to understand that you will always be the 2020 Florida Teacher of the Year. It's not a title that goes away. It's not something that changes. So 10 years from now, I still am, because I am alive, I still am the 2020 Florida Teacher, because it's only one title and I'm the one who holds it, And so I will always have the @2020FLToy Twitter handle. But I do have one that I started right before that, because my predecessor was like, hey, you need to get a Twitter handle. And at the time I didn't tweet at all. And I'm still terrible, but I don't really tweet anymore. I'll tweet sometimes, but like my year when I was active, I tweeted all the time. But you can follow me on @2020FLToy on Twitter, and also @Dr. Graham 8. I also have an Instagram. I'm still working on learning how to navigate that. I know that's the new thing. Yeah. Children, I know it's not new anymore, but
that's pretty old.
But Colin's got us by a couple years. He's an Instagram pro. I'm still resistant to it.
But @Dré Graham 3. I still have the old. See, I'm old. We were here when Facebook first started, so that's
the Facebook.
That's what I'm comfortable with. I don't even I just Dré Graham, just DRE Graham. I'm the only one on Facebook with that name, and I do have a LinkedIn, but I have 3 LinkedIns. One is from my Oofly Doo account. One's from my personal Gmail account.
No one says Oofly Doo anymore.
They don't know.
Do you know Oofly Doo?
Sarah, oh my gosh.
Because I get I'm on the phone all the time with customers and everything, and they give me their email address and they, whatever at ufl.edu, and I'm like, oh, Oofly do. They're like, no, at ufl.edu. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I thought we all knew what that meant, but
apparently not.
And then I have one of my school district of Hillsborough County email. So if just look up DeKean, or it's Dr. DeKean Graham or Dr. Dré Graham, any of those on LinkedIn, and I check all of them, not religiously, but I'll go and I'll accept people, but yeah, no, it's good times.
Cool, man. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys to everybody who's listening and for sharing this episode, and special thanks to our team, James Leitner, Sarah Lentz, Allison Madrino, and of course my co-host, my man Michael Dees. And if you were driving and didn't get a chance to write down this information, do not worry. We've got your, I was going to say, the information to our sponsors who make the show happen. Don't worry. You can find their information in the show notes of this episode and on our website, whoagnv.com/sponsors. So definitely get connected to all of the businesses that make this happen. And special love and shout out to the UF Mover guys. If you need help moving your home or your business, guys, they will move your business too. And in fact, they've moved schools. There's been a lot of stuff happening in the area with new schools being built, and they've actually been helping move schools. So they can do it all. And full service packing, moving bulky items, disassembling furniture. And if you need storage, well, they got your back there too. Mike, do you know what one of my favorite parts about the UF Mover guys is, though?
Their muscles? No, episode 102?
Boom. Well, they did. They definitely.
What is your favorite part?
They definitely have the muscles, but you don't have to pay anything up front.
That is a good thing.
They will complete the move and make sure that you're 100% satisfied before you even have to pay them anything. You guys, they have over 600 Google reviews with a 4.9 star rating for a reason. Give them a call at 352-415-0886 or visit their website at ufmoverguys.com. Brad and Jordan, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for sponsoring. And of course, when you give them a call, make sure you say, hey, I heard you on the WHOA GNV podcast. The podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. We will see you later.